U.S. and many of its allies seem impatient to wait for the UN findings, with American warships already converging near the war-torn state, and the British are preparing to join them. RT's Maria Finoshina looks at where their confidence comes from in blaming the Syrian government for using chemical weapons and where it might lead.
United Nations experts are in Syria to investigate whether chemical weapons were used during the ongoing conflict. Finally. But even before they start, a senior U.S. administration official has said there is very little doubt that chemical weapons were used by the Syrian regime against civilians. These are the arguments we are told were given to President Obama as proof. The reported number of victims. But how can the number explain how? They say during World War II, up to 80 million people were killed. What does it tell us about how they died? The next argument the American administration says leaves them in little doubt that Assad attacked his own people with chemical weapons is the reported symptoms of those who were killed or injured. Symptoms, of course, speak for themselves, but how does that answer exactly who was behind this? U.S. intelligence cites witness accounts. That is hardly a reliable argument for Syria. Since the beginning of the conflict there, almost 2.5 years ago, each side has accused the other, often echoing each other. While covering events from different cities in Syria, those under governmental or rebel control, I often met and talked to witnesses from both sides whose accounts contradicted one another. The truth was never easy to find, even on the ground. Well, even if chemical weapons were used in Syria, why does it automatically point to the Syrian regime? Isn't that still to be investigated? It all appears to be based on assumptions.
We still believe that they don't have the capability to use chemical weapons. That has not changed. Again, we're looking into the facts on the ground, but there's no reason, if there's nothing to hide, for the regime not to let the investigative team.
Do you know if the UN team is operating under those same assumptions, that the opposition doesn't have the ability to use these kinds of weapons?
Yes.
They are?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, major world media are bombarding audiences with grotesque pictures of dead people, including children, allegedly killed by chemical agents, allegedly used by the Syrian regime. And all that during a military escalation in the region. The Pentagon is moving its naval forces closer to Syria. 3 destroyers are already in the Mediterranean, readying for a variety of attacks, all of them carrying up to 300 cruise missiles. Moscow warns the West against repeating tragic mistakes. All this is reminiscent of events of 10 years ago in which, using false information that the Iraqis possessed weapons of mass destruction, the United States launched a reckless enterprise with consequences that everyone is well aware of. Russia's foreign minister spokesperson said. Well, this small tube Colin Powell, the U.S. Secretary of State at that time, presented to the UN Security Council as proof, led to disastrous consequences. Will history repeat itself? Maria Finoshina, RT, Moscow.